Hey guys, thanks so much for joining. Of course, I got my co-host Brian the Beast Robinson here, and our special guest today, director and actor Joe Cornet.
Hi, guys.
Thanks for joining, Joe. And
Thanks
we're gonna
for
have
having me.
Alexander Nevsky, bodybuilder and action movie star, join us shortly. Gonna talk about the new film that Joe had directed, and Alexander stars in. Joe's also got a very big role in this film. We'll talk about that. Taken from Rio Bravo. First question though, Joe. We got one from Antonio. He always comes up with these great questions for these live discussions, and he's saying, "Mr. Joe, you've directed films across genres, but seem to have a particular affinity for westerns and action films. What draws you to these genres, and how do you keep them fresh for modern audiences?"
Uh, I suppose there was no grand design or master plan or strategy for this. It just sort of happened. The first three features I directed were all westerns. I wrote the scripts. I was in them. I directed them. And then one thing led to another, and I met with Alexander, and we both decided to do a western, but we decided to do something a little different and do sort of a mashup of the action genre coupled with sort of the Italian Western look and feel. Something that really hasn't quite been done before. Hence, the first film we had Matthias Hughes, who's also in the second installment in the franchise, and we had Olivier Gruner, and of course in this one we have Cynthia Rothrock and Don the Dragon Wilson. So it adds this extra I call it outrageous element, but I mean it in a good way. I mean, this film that just came out, Taken from Rio Bravo, I lovingly described as outrageous, because it is. It's outrageous in its action and its scope, and it's big, and it's a lot of fun, and it's very, very different from the westerns that have been out there and are out there now. And of course, I've done horror too. I mean, why not? So I try to do different things, and keep it exciting, keep it fresh.
Oh, for sure. Well, let's dive a little back into your history and origin. How exactly and why did you get involved in filmmaking? Like, is this something you wanted to do as a kid, or did you just get into it later and decide I want to do this now?
Oh yes, I had always wanted to get into this, and my journey to how I got here is rather convoluted, but I'll try to simplify it. I had done many other careers, and my most recent one was in commercial real estate. And I got out of that industry, thank God, in around 2010, just barely escaping with my life. And I had a good run in it. I had a good time, but I always kept on top of filmmaking and film in general, and not so much with the technology, because I was trained with cameras that had sprockets and gears and things like this. And I started to pick up on the digital technology right around that time with different cameras. And then one thing led to another, and I started taking a few writing classes and getting back up to speed on that discipline. And I suppose the change was a number of years back. I started taking a film acting workshop with a gentleman named Clu Gulager, who was he's sadly not with us anymore, but he was one of the legendary character actors from the 50s, 60s, 70s, right through the 80s and the 90s. You gentlemen probably know of him, even if you don't know the name. If I were to show you a picture, you'd know who he was. And I took his film acting workshop, and the next thing I know, here I am, and I bankrolled my first feature and my next two, and then that led me to Alexander, and then we started doing films together. And here we are, having a marvelous time, by the way.
Speaking of which,
and
hey guys,
Alexander.
How are you doing, guys? Can you hear me?
Yeah. We are doing great. How are you doing?
Good. Very good. Trying to adjust my camera right here. You can hear me well. You can see me.
Yes. Great movie, by the way, Alexander. You definitely
Thank you.
pull off that action hero in such a cool way, just the way the film opens. And obviously, you got to blow away a lot of the villains in style and just look very stoic and powerful doing it. So I quite enjoyed the film.
Thank you very
Stoic
much.
is the word.
you.
I like that. That's how it defines you, stoic.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the compliment.
Now, this is
He's actually, guys, he's not merely stoic. He's actually very funny.
oh, is he?
He is. He's very funny.
It's a great blend.
Great sense of humor.
Stoicism and humor have to go together, I think.
Mhm.
They should do a follow up to Jingle All the Way. I'm thinking Alexander in the sequel.
Yes.
I'll
that's
do
true.
that. I'll direct that for you. No problem.
Yes. Thank
Hey,
you
so
both,
this-
guys. Thank you for watching the movie. Thank you.
Oh yeah, thanks for sharing it, and thanks for coming on here. So this is, of course, the second in the series. So just to catch people up to speed, can you tell us about your character? Because this character is based on a real guy.
He's a real guy. You know, he based on John Basil Turchin, who was a real colonel of Imperial Guards in the Russian Empire in the beginning of the 19th century. So he immigrated to the United States with his wife, I think maybe like a decade before Civil War. And when Civil War started, he was already an American citizen, and he joined the Union. And he started as a colonel, but finished as a brigadier general. And he was promoted to brigadier general by President Lincoln himself. And in our movies, in the first one, Gunfight at Rio Bravo, and in this one, Taken from Rio Bravo, we're trying to, create like a special world of what might happen to him after the war. Because this guy, he disappeared after the war, So I just hope that our film, brought more positivity into the world. That's because this guy who I played definitely did.
When you say like he just disappeared after the war, so is there like no historical record of what he ended up getting involved with or what he did with his life?
In reality, David, of course, there's some record. There's some small record.
Okay.
But again, he finished the war as a brigadier general. And he met with 3 presidents, not just with Lincoln. I think he met with 2 more. I think he also met with Grant, and he met with another one. And everyone was expecting him to have a huge career after the war. But he decided not to do it. And he, I think he died like in the beginning of 20th century, before World War I. And there is a record of him, yes. But, you remember Tarantino. Tarantino always change history, right? And make it a little bit better. So that's exactly what Joe and I did with this one.
Okay. Yeah, very cool. It'd be funny if they had social media back then, because like nowadays everybody knows everything about everybody in a way, but you could kind of create your own narrative and people kind of have their own theories on things. Me and Brian were actually joking about this earlier, but yeah, it's just such a different world now, because pretty much the way people post on Instagram, for example, like on their stories, people could kind of see what you're involved with day to day, or like on your social media, Alexander, you're always hanging out with like big movie stars. You're always at nice restaurants. So be funny to see.
But let me congratulate you, because remember our last conversations last year after the first Western, and you were just talking to me about movies. You were talking to me about breaking through and everything, but you're in great shape. Now you're even in a better shape. And this coming fight of yours, you will fight like world boxing champion, and you already did a couple of big action movies. David, I think, and Brian and Joe, I think you all will support me with a message, because for all your audience, and now your audience is growing, right? You have already like 150,000 people watching your YouTube channel. You can make it. You can make it. You shouldn't wait for anyone to push you forward. You can push yourself forward by yourself. And actually, you will be the best one to do so. And That's what I think. That's what I'm doing. That's what Joe is doing, and hopefully Brian. And that's what you're doing. And you're an inspiration, David. Congratulations to you.
Oh, thanks so much, man. Yeah, it's been wild over the last year because I had like finished shooting 4 films now. Only one of them's out. Bloodstorm, my lead role, is coming out soon. And then like that fight you had referenced, I'll just quickly mention it again. Sugar Shane Mosley, one of the greatest boxers of all time. So literally, if I beat him, I would have done what like Jake Paul has never even tried to do: fight a guy on that level in boxing. Logan Paul lost against Mayweather. Conor McGregor lost against Mayweather. I could literally be the first guy who fights one of these elite boxers in their world, in their sport, and wins, which would be kind of legendary. But like you said, people do have to, you got to think big. You got to strategize. And like you were saying, Joe, you were in commercial real estate. It wasn't that long ago where I was just a stockbroker, but like I had these ideas and dreams and goals of doing something that I really wanted to do. And, it worked out. I always like to use the quote, if you're not invited to the table, build your own. I do plan to get invited to that table at some point next year, hopefully. But as of now, I'm doing whatever I can to build my own table.
David,
and,
let me just add this.
gotta,
I've been around a lot of people in my life, and you definitely have incredible self-belief. But the biggest thing in life is being able to face failure. Like, if you can handle failure, you've got it. Anybody can deal with success. But the way, we do some things, they don't work. You don't care, you don't care if a door shuts, man. You just kick another one open. And that's a real, true superpower.
You got to keep going forward, man. You get knocked down 7 times, get up 8. That's the key. Hey,
that's the learning process. And Laurence Olivier used to say, in regards to an actor paying attention to notices, reviews, he said the secret is not to pay too close attention to the good ones. And there's a lot in that, because you do learn from your struggles and your failures, for lack of a better term. You learn from your successes.
Wisdom is gained at the end of a whip in life, man. We get beat up, but our most valuable wisdom comes from our hardest times when we take the greatest beatings.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Here's a great question for you, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
As a director who's also spent time in front of the camera, how has your experience as an actor influenced your empathy and approach to directing others?
Well, I always approach directing from an actor's point of view. It's automatic. It's ingrained in me. When I talked earlier about my film actor workshop experience, that's kind of what Clue imparted to me back in those days. And he made me think like an actor. And I approach everything I direct as, I'm known as an actor's director. I've been called that. And I approach it that way. It really is one and the same. I think both ways at all times. So I'm thinking about what Alexander is doing in a scene, and with him, I don't really have to tell him anything about what to do because he's great. But I'm also thinking of it from a compositional point of view, what the frame looks like and so forth, and where he is in that frame. And if he's with somebody else in that frame, where that person is.
Okay.
If that
Alexander, share your experience, how it is working with a director like Joe. Obviously, you guys get along well because you've done multiple films together already. So.
Oh, yeah. Yes, we did. Before I start, let me just get back to Brian's point for a second. And actually, we all mentioned it. Arnold Schwarzenegger once said that when you are successful, it's not really shows your strength, but when you're really down and refuse to give up, and that's where strength is. And I have a huge table right here in my home office, and here's the humidor which Arnold gave me for my birthday. This is Terminator 3 humidor right here, and it's that's a box from it which he signed for my birthday. It's I was fortunate to do all the things I'm doing. And if we talk about directors, I worked with Walter Hill. Walter Hill made it undisputed in 2001. It was my very first film, my very first Hollywood credit back then. And after that, I worked with Sofia Coppola. I worked with Andrzej Bartkowiak. I worked with Stuart Cooper, who won Berlin Film Festival twice. I worked with some other independent directors. I worked with action stars who made movies. Mark Dacascos and his directorial debut, Showdown in Manila. I produced it and I starred in it. But when I started to work with Joe, for me, it was it was a great thing to understand that director can also, yes, he can be your great friend, of course, and you can have a great connection as people, but director can always be positive. He can always be prepared. He can always be on point. He can always be on time. And most importantly, he can always be fun to work with. Fun to work with. And I directed one movie, Black Rose, and that was great experience. The problem was I was a producer, an actor, and one of the writers, and one of the stars. And we shot it in Moscow. We shot it in United States, in Los Angeles. And I had Kristanna Loken with me from Terminator 3, by the way, from Terminator 3. And Robert Davi and Adrian Paul from Highlander TV show, and a bunch of other, actually Matthias Hughes, who will know, was also in the movie. And I remember the amount of stress I had, and I hope I was mostly positive and fun to work with. But again, it was just one movie. With Joe, now we're in production of a fourth one. We're making a fourth one together, and that's most important thing. And again, of course, you have to have a great product. You have to have a great professional who makes sure you have that product. But it should also be fun, because movies there, I mean, how fortunate are we, to be able to make movies one after another? It should be fun. It should be joy. And with Joe, that's exactly that. Joy and fun.
Nice. Yeah. Got to enjoy the journey and the process.
Of course.
Here's a great question from Antonio, and you could start that, because this is asked to both you guys, but you could start, Joe. So Antonio is asking, speaking on Brian's point, what's the failure or setback in your career that later revealed itself as a crucial turning point for your growth as an artist? Is there something you could think of specifically?
I suppose it was any one of the, and there haven't been many, but any one of the aborted or projects that I was not able to finish. And there was always, a very good reason that I was never able to finish some of these. And I'm going back to sort of my earlier days, when I had other things that I had planned for, written scripts for, I had hired actors, and I had started the production, and for whatever reason, it just doesn't come together. Now, I could remember one time specifically, and this was very early on, and this was a learning curve. When I had, and Alexander, I think you've had this in your career a couple of times too, but when certain key people, for whatever reason, just decide not to show up, and you're like, everybody's standing around waiting, and your actor or one of your crew or whatever, and there's like no explanation. You're trying to get somebody on the phone. There's no answer. They've disappeared. That's happened to me. Obviously, I learned certain things to do to ensure that never happened again. Also, with these projects of mine that never either started but fumbled or never got off the ground, you go back and you say, okay, well, what was the concept here that I was trying to do, and why did it fail? And you go, okay, well, I was trying something in this genre. It was maybe too much for me at the time. Maybe I didn't have the budget available to me at the time. I didn't have the professionals that I have available to me now back then, so you learn from that. I think that's a big learning curve. And also, keeping in mind what is appropriate for you at your various stages of your life, your so-called career, whatever, we want to call it. And, I started this sort of as just, Alexander talked about having fun. I started this sort of just for fun, but I was pretty serious about getting it going. And I never dreamed that I would get a distribution deal right on the heels of finishing the edit of my first feature. I never, that wasn't something I was strategizing for, but it happened. And I was able to strategize further on to make the next 2 films I made roll into the same distro deals. So that's sort of a learning curve.
Yeah, it's, and just as statistics, so the audience knows, 90% of independent films never get completed. So just actually finishing one and getting it distributed. Everybody could watch Taken From Rio Bravo on Zoomy, by the way. I think it's XUOMI.
It's XUMO. Yeah.
Oh, okay. You guys could all stream that. Yep. So yeah, a big accomplishment, just getting these films completed and getting them released with good distribution, and the quality is beautiful. Like the cinematography, all the landscapes, and that's what you want to see in Westerns, because movies are supposed to put you and take you to another place, like another world. And this film does such a good job of doing that. You feel like you're there, and the action's a lot of fun, and you guys work very well together on camera. Obviously, you directed the film, but you're in the film a lot, and you guys have a cool partnership, in the film, working together.
I gotta say too, I told Joe earlier, sometimes with these action movies, your intelligence gets a little insulted when the gun scenes are really crappy. And like, you came out and you were shooting multiple people. And, there's some movies they do that, and it's so badly done, so poor, but you pulled it off. I believed it. I'm like, man, you believe in your head a little, maybe you could do that. The way you moved, the way it looked, I was impressed.
Well, we are fortunate enough to have one of the greats, and I'll let Alex take it from here, one of the greats in the business as far as stunt and fight choreography. Alex, do you want to take it from here?
I will. And first of all, what I want to say, can you hear that interesting sound over here? That's never easy. Yeah, but my point is, first of all, talking about the failures and all of that, right? To the question which our audience member asked. For me, I don't have any horror stories if we talk about failure or whatever. But when I was a kid, I was really skinny. For me, it was a kind of horror story, but it pushed me to find first boxing, and after that kickboxing, and after that bodybuilding. And bodybuilding was my ticket to film industry later. Same thing. When I moved to into the United States for the first time in 1999, I didn't speak English at all. Yeah, and my mom always told me, back in Russia, back in the 90s, like, yeah, you should study the language, you should read more. I just, I didn't do it. And it was a failure. I should have. But when I came here, it was another reason for me just to push myself forward harder. And that's how I ended up at the UCLA, and started to learn English. And after that, at least Strasberg Theater Institute, I started to learn acting, which was another interesting story. So I hope that for your audience, the message would be, we all have failures. We all have them. But who cares? You should just continue to push forward. You should continue to have fun. You should continue to fight for your dream. And Joe just mentioned great team, which we had on the first Western and the second Western. And thank you again for complimenting us, because again, I think it's a huge achievement to Joe, because what he did, he was able, and you, David, my witness over here, because you, I don't know, Brian probably too, we're all fans of action movies, like classic action movies. We want to have more action. But Joe, first of all, is a huge fan of Western. original westerns, like spaghetti westerns. And he was able to combine these two genres together and combine it very well. And me, as a fan of the genre, actually both genres, I enjoy these movies as an audience member. Of course, I enjoy them more when I see myself on the screen, but it's a different story. But we also had a great fight choreographer, Art Camacho, who is a legendary guy himself, and I worked with him before, and now we're doing these westerns together with Joe and him. We had a great director of photography, Sam Wilkerson, and that was actually his and his team's achievement of all this amazing shots you saw on screen, which you complimented before. And we had great actors. By the way, I know that one of our co-stars, Don the Dragon Wilson, great Don the Dragon Wilson, he's your friend too now, right, David? You trained with him?
Oh, yeah. I train with them all the time. I eat lunch with them, hang out with them. In fact, I'm going to meet him after this live. I'm going to go meet him and one of his childhood friends, Chip, down at Skid Row. We're going to hand out a bunch of stuff to some homeless people and help them out.
Nice.
That's great. Please hug him. Please say hello to him for both of us. Please do.
Yeah, we'll do. We'll do. Oh, I think Brian disappeared, but oh yeah, but yeah, it was
never
cool.
is on Sunday morning, but we're still here.
Yeah, definitely. Here's a question for you, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of great questions here. I'm just trying to find the right ones in the chat. As someone who's worn many hats in the industry, actor, director, producer, how do these roles inform each other in your projects?
As just to clarify, as far as each, being an actor, being a producer, being a director, I guess the answer would be you see this total picture, this big picture. And whenever we start one of these projects, that's the way I think. And I'm thinking all the time, as I spoke earlier about you, I think as a director, simultaneously thinking as an actor, what should the actor be concentrating on? What should he or she be doing? And what should I be doing as the director to capture that? So just add producer, sometimes add writer to that. So you see things in the bigger picture. And one of the interesting approaches that Alex and I have is that he's very good at strategy. And he's taught me a lot about how to strategize for that big picture. Meaning you don't just think, well, I have this script here and I want to make it. And you're just limited to that. Or I want to get hired as an actor and you're just thinking, he's thinking in that big picture. So he always has his producer hat on and he's thinking, okay, we're going to make this movie. Now, we've cast these people. How are we going to, number one, finish the picture, which you mentioned earlier about, most of these indies never get finished because there's no strategy oftentimes. So we have that strategy. Alex has that strategy, which is to think forward beyond what you're doing right here, beyond your acting, you're doing this script here, beyond that, beyond the post, beyond the musical composition, how it's going to sound, and where are you going to take it strategically? What is the best time to release it? How to release it? How to create the buzz? How to pick the right platform? I mean, we've had movies on all kinds of different platforms, Amazon Prime movies, what have you. This is an interesting one, and one that Alexander personally chose was this Zumo, which is an interesting new, streaming network. And so we think in the big picture, how are these films going to look? Who are we going to present them to? How do we present them and where? If that makes any sense. I kind of rambled.
Joe, thank you very much. Thank you for the compliment. But that's very important point you made, and I think, David, it's important for your audience, because so many people, they just dream about
Yes.
making a movie, and a lot of them basically even they are trying to do that. It's just they should look at all of that as a puzzle, like when we all were kids, like a puzzle, because there's very important parts of this puzzle, and if you miss a couple of them, your puzzle will not be finished. Kind of like, you can have an amazing car right there, an amazing new car, but if you don't have a key to start the engine, you cannot go anywhere, right? Or if something small wrong with that engine, just a little thing, you cannot go anywhere. So in independent filmmaking, you have to make sure that your puzzle works, David. And talking about strategy and talking about distribution, which is also very important. For example, first one, when me and you, David, spoke about first one last year, Shout Factory released it right away to the. We had limited theaters, we had a theatrical premiere. After that, it was everywhere on video on demand to rent and buy, and we had the DVD in Walmart and everywhere, because it's still a business, especially for Westerns, DVD and Blu-rays. And you even have a DVD from us, I hope, somewhere there, which Joe and I signed for you. You remember that?
In my bookcase,
With this one, yeah, thank you. With this one, it was, it's a year and a half later, and you know what Tubi is, and all your audience knows Tubi now, because 20th Century, even when it was 20th Century Fox before Disney bought it, 20th Century bought Tubi and made Tubi the new thing. They have studio movies, they have independent movies, they have originals now and everything. So NBC Universal bought Zumo Play, and now basically Zumo Play has all the chances to be new Tubi. And so we gave Zumo Play an exclusive, and there's a lot of, almost 30 million people, almost 30 million subscribers to that platform. They pushing it very hard. As you saw on the platform, it's always on the front pages and all of that. And we gave them an exclusive. So basically it's like Zumo original movie for next couple of months or a little more. But on November 1st, it will be released on DVD and video on demand and all the digital platforms. And so basically we'll push it again. And, on the 23rd, it will be released in Germany on DVD and Blu-ray and digital platforms. It's already Prime Video movie in the UK. And also it's available on Sky, which is huge in the UK. And I can go on. I can tell you about each country, because Gunfight at Rio Bravo was released in 32 countries in the end of the day. Somewhere in theaters, somewhere on digital, somewhere is Prime Video movie, but in 32 countries. And my point is, for those of us who are fortunate enough to make a movie, the journey will not finish when you with your friends at the screening somewhere watching a film. No, you have to push your movie. You have to make sure it's on all the platforms. You have to make sure money is there. You have to make sure you publicizing it hard. So it's like a baby. It's like a flower, right? Because if you have a flower in your home, you are in charge of that flower. You have to make sure, you put water on it and all of that. It's just, it should be fun. It should be joy, but it's work nonstop, but you're working for yourself. So you should do it, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. And I do distinctly remember when we talked last year about strategy, because everyone has these dreams, they have these goals, and, there's a lot of people that do put the work in, but if they don't have the strategy, like it doesn't really, it's not going to work at the end of the day. And, I love how you talk about like there's different pieces of a puzzle you put together, because that I talk about that too. Like I've become religious late last year, by the way. But even if somebody's not religious, you could just exchange God for the universe. I believe the universe. I believe God is very giving. So if you have like an idea, and a goal that you want to do, I believe you're looking and you're working towards it, I believe you will be given the pieces, but it's always up to you to put that together. It's like you said, it's a puzzle. You'll get these different pieces, but you got to figure out how to put it together. And that's where a lot of the work that the individual has to do. But the universe and God is very generous, in my opinion, if you work towards something, but you got to put that puzzle together. Hey, Joe, here's a great question from Antonio.
Okay.
You've worked with a variety of actors over the years. What qualities in an actor makes you want to work with them again and again?
Well, I've been fortunate to have had nothing but almost completely pleasant experiences with anybody I've worked with in front of the camera, which is rare. But I think that, you always want somebody that cares about the performance, cares about how he or she is going to present himself on the screen in front of your lens. And I think that's kind of what I look for. And, we've got great actors in all of these films. And I think of specifically one. I mean, they're all great. And but you take somebody like Carrie Goodwin, who's in both our Rio Bravo franchises, and she approaches it, gives it a backstory, studies it, and then brings it. And and Alexander, the same thing. You care, you study, you discipline yourself, and that's what makes me want to work with you again, as opposed to there's a few occasions where we've had some people that just phone it in, but not many.
And David, let me compliment Joe again, because he equally great with Oscar-nominated actors, and with people who just who doing some little background work. He is like, it's not a big difference to him. So he worked with them with all his heart, and he provide them with those fun experience we mentioned. Because, for on Night of the Caregiver, the horror film we made before Taken From Rio Bravo, I didn't act in it, I just produced it. Eric Roberts was on set, and he was amazing. And of course, it was joy to work with him and to talk to him. And it was my third movie with Eric. And Joe acted in the film, and he played with Eric together, and he also directed him. It was huge fun. But when we had, for example, on one of the Westerns, we had just background cowboys, right, who just ride together a couple of times for a couple of shots. Joe was with them, talking to them about horses and hats and guns, and he was as excited as he was with Eric Roberts, which is a great thing, of course, for him as a human being, but also as a director. So that's it's compliment to you, Joe.
Thank you.
My pleasure. But this is true. It's not even a compliment. It's true. And one more thing I want to mention. I'm sure you and Brian, you heard all those great music we had in the movie, and it was written by Sean Murray. He's Emmy-nominated composer, and he's an amazing guy who actually introduced us to each other in 2020. Me and Joe. Because Sean was working with me before starting with Black Rose, and he was working with Joe on his film Promise before Gunfight at Rio Bravo. And Sean even wrote a title song, which performed in a movie by Tatiana Neva, my beautiful girlfriend, who also acted in the movie, and she had a great cameo in the movie, and also she performed those songs. Another example to your audience, how can you be talented and generous and amazing and fun to work with. And another compliment to Joe, I can give him compliments all day long, because he has an ability to create those environment on set. So basically you just, it's a hard work, probably more than 12 hours a day and whatever, but you're having fun. You having fun. And all those strategy and all those hard work and all those puzzles and all those failures and whatever, of course, it can be there, but fun has to be there as well.
Yeah.
And when you have fun, I mean, you can do whatever you want with your life and your career.
Oh, definitely. Now, I'm sure, and you guys have both been involved with quite a few films now, but just like anything, the more you do it, the better you get, the more you learn. And speaking about learning, can you guys share a moment from your latest collaboration that was particularly challenging and rewarding, and what it taught you both about filmmaking?
Joe, please start. We're talking about Taken from Rio Bravo, right? Please,
Yeah,
Joe.
this one specifically, the latest collaboration, or if there's a more interesting answer to one of the other films you've worked on, but something that, really taught you something about filmmaking.
Well, you always learn.
Mhm.
You just do. And I'm trying to think on Taken from Rio Bravo, because everything is generally with the two of us, laser focused, pre-planned. Now, obviously, things come up. People miss the bus and don't show up, or people flub a line here and there, or or there's a camera problem or something. Yes, you learn from that. But I would say with Taken from Rio Bravo, we had it pretty much fine-tuned as to, we had an A and a B unit. And so we had them both going simultaneously. And I think it was so well structured. And back me up on this, Alex, or if I'm wrong, tell me. It was so structured that it just moved on like a well-oiled machine. And generally, happily, our projects tend to move like that.
Can I ask you a question about that, Joe? I mean, it's really interesting. Go ahead. Sorry, I'll have a question.
Just to add very quickly, solution to a problem. When you do have a problem, you just brainstorm a way to work around it. And I've got all kinds of quick fixes operating up here as to if somebody doesn't show, okay, we're going to shoot this instead. And we go off the schedule. There's little things like that. I've had situations where I've had to read off camera to the actor, occasionally, not much, but these are just little tricks you employ. And most recently on the current production we're right in the middle of, which is a very interesting project, and we'll talk maybe in a minute if we can, but we had a language barrier because the current film we're working on involves elements of Japanese culture. And we have Japanese actors. In two cases, Japanese actors who do not speak English. Well, they could say hello and goodbye. So I was working very closely with a translator, which was something I've never done before. And I was a little nervous about it at first, but the guy we were working with is so great, and it worked. And and I learned a lot from that about how to express what I wanted to express to these Japanese actors, and it all came out. I mean, we got it, So that was a major challenge, but again, overcome.
Brian, you had a question, Brian.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So for the inspiring film producers and directors, are you? Because my question kind of evolved a little bit. Would you say not only planning but preemptive thinking, like really trying
Yes.
to look and solve that problem before it happens? Is that what makes a successful director, producer?
That is a much more intelligent way of saying it than what I cobbled together moments ago. That's exactly it. Preemptive thinking. And I think
my head blowing up.
I think that, when I was in another career, a decade or more ago, I was always preemptively thinking because there are all these disasters and unknowns lurking around every corner. and I learned how to, I was dealing with
real estate, correct?
yes, and I was dealing with contractors and
Yes.
building materials and unions in some cases and planning commissions and filing your plans and having a meeting with the city council and all of this stuff. And there's all kinds of unknowns lurking, little landmines, and you got to say, okay, this could happen, so what am I going to do? And as a save. And that's the way you think on these kinds of things for filmmaking, is preemptive. What happens if your actor doesn't show? What happens if your equipment breaks down? What happens if it rains? We had that on Taken from Rio Bravo. We were filming, we were about halfway through a scene, and this beautiful Arizona monsoon comes floating in and just drenches everything. So pack everything up, go inside base camp, wait it out, go back out, sun's shining again. Actually, it made everything look a lot more interesting. And the scene, by the way, is the graveyard sequence. I don't know if you guys remember that sequence, but the creepy graveyard. We shot about half of that, and then it rained. And then we went back out, and it still looked amazing. So
interesting. Yeah, I think that's so important in life. And what you probably gathered, somebody who's just done one career, sometimes they're not able to pull from other experiences in their life and other professions. And maybe that's what's been an incredible asset. I like what you said about the landmines. I say that I call them bureaucratic landmines. Watch out for the bureaucratic landmines when dealing with organizations and governments.
Well, I always felt that my prior lives prepared me for this moment, because if, I wanted to get into this business back when I was 17, 18 years of age. And I had this grand master plan of, by the time I was 21, I would be entrenched in it and doing it. And thank God I didn't, because I don't think I would have handled it back in those days as well as I handled it now, because I think this walking through all these various careers kind of prepared me for this, so that I wouldn't stumble and I would know what to do preemptively, or just
same problem, just a different look. It's just the same thing, and you just project it over from your other experience. You say, all right, it might be a kind of different scenario but it's the same thing that I've seen. It's just organized differently. Yeah.
Yes.
Here's a great question for both of you. We'll start with you, Alexander. This is another great one from Antonio. Is there a particular film or project you've worked on that holds a special place in your heart, not because of its success, but because of what it meant to you on a personal level?
Probably the first one, the first big one, which I produced and starred in. It's called Moscow Heat. It's on Tubi, actually. It's on Tubi. It was shot in 2003. It's with me and Michael York and Richard Tyson and Adrian Paul and Joanna Pakula from Gorky Park. It's the first movie, which was my first battle as a producer, as a star in English, with a big part. And again, probably because it's the first one for me as a producer and a star together. Very, very first one, which I made here, again, undisputed. I have a small part in a film, but the ability to work with Walter Hill, to work with producer Brad Krivoy, who made a lot of great movies, and to work with Wesley Snipes. Wesley was a star of the film, and Ving Rhames, and Peter Falk, great late Peter Falk, Columbo. He also was in the film. That was a great experience, again, because probably it was first movie for me ever in Hollywood. And later, to be honest with you, each movie each movie I'm doing, I enjoy it as much as anything else, and all of them they all have a special part in my heart. And I think the one we're making now, which Joe mentioned, that will be special part, because it looks like I finally will make it into Japan. I never been in Japan, and the movie we're making now with Joe, it's called The Wide West. And Joe mentioned Japanese actors, great Japanese actors we have in the movie. What he didn't mention, unfortunately, they're all bigger than me, David. They're all bigger than me. They're all sumo stars. One of them, Hiroki, you saw him in John Wick 4. He was great in John Wick 4, Hiroki, and he was a sumo champion. Another one, Ichiko, he just did Ballerina with Ana de Armas, John Wick spin-off. He also, I mean, they're huge. They're just huge. They're great as actors and athletes and co-stars. But Joe was absolutely right. They didn't speak English much. And thanks to executive producer Andrew Freund, my friend Andrew, who basically producing it with us. He, of course, he helped a lot. And he's also president of US Sumo Association. So that Western probably will have a very special part in my heart, in Joe's heart, and even in Hiroki and Ichiko's hearts, because this one is very unusual. We're in the middle of production, and hopefully we'll be done. We have a little break right now because we have to push Taken, but hopefully we finish shooting in September. We'll keep you posted on that one. That one, it's it's definitely will have a special part in the heart.
Okay. Now this has nothing to do with the Rio Bravo series, right? This is just the standalone one, Western.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Same question to you, Joe, as far as like if there's a particular film or project that has that special place in your heart.
Yes. Whereas each of these films that I'm involved in all have special moments and special places, special memories. I think of Night of the Caregiver, our horror film. I had a great blast making that. It was all night shoots, which I don't necessarily prefer, but those night shoots were fun. And it was just amazing to be on that set and with those people. But I think, separate and apart from what we're doing one after the other, I think for me is probably my third film, Promise, because number one, I wrote that script with a lot of love in it. Okay. And there were a lot of deep themes I was trying to get across in that story. And in that film, I had the honor of working with Don Murray, who is the father of our composer, Sean Murray. And Don Murray, sadly, is no longer with us, but to actually do not one, but two scenes with Don, one on horseback, one of just a two-shot of he and I together. It was amazing. It was amazing those, whatever it was, 3-4 days on set with him in this remote location. And it was just amazing. I will never, ever forget that, probably. And, Don and I were very close, and I'm sorry he's no longer here, but he had a wonderful life. I was just at a tribute for Don a couple of Sundays ago where we had a screening of Bus Stop. He was the last leading man of Marilyn Monroe. So that was a thrill. And this was not by design, but it just happened. I was the last director that he had. I was the last motion picture he was in was my film Promise. So that holds a very special place. But each and every one is, it's like my child, you know, and you know, so each one is equally has precious memories, you know.
For sure, for sure. And guys, just to wrap this up, we're coming in on the hour. Great question for both of you. We'll start with you, Alexander. This is from Antonio. Looking back on your careers, what legacy do you hope to leave behind in the world of film, and how do you want to be remembered by future generations of filmmakers?
I don't know if I want to be remembered only, you know, by filmmakers, but what I'm trying to do all my life on both sides of the ocean, I'm trying to bring more positivity in the world. I'm trying to inspire people, and I'm trying to push people, you know, push them to push themselves more. That's what I'm trying to do. I did it when I was a bodybuilder, with my bodybuilding books and with everything what I did in Eastern Europe. And here, I'm trying to do the same thing, and that's what I'm doing with movies as well. And maybe it's too early, hopefully too early, to talk about legacy and all of that. Great question, Antonio. Thank you for for that question. But I think what we should do right now, without thinking about legacy yet, right now, unfortunately, there's so much of the negativity around, right? And we'll not go into that. We will not talk about that much. But so many strange things and terrible things are happening, right? So we all should make sure that positivity exists as well. And I just hope that Taken From Rio Bravo will be another, like a little positive thing Joe and I and Tatiana and Kerry and Don Dragon Wilson and all our team we're bringing into the world. So that's exactly what you, David, what you're doing, because you pushing people to be more positive, and that's exactly what we're doing. So hopefully we'll be all remembered for that.
Yeah, I love your answer, Alexander. And I was going to say the same thing. With what you're ultimately trying to do is what I'm trying to do is negate some of that negativity in the world. It's very easy for people to focus and fixate on that, but they need to switch that mindset and attitude and look at all the positive things. Because if I just go outside, and I have a positive outlook, I'll focus more and it'll reinforce the positive stuff as opposed to the negative. I can find the negative stuff if I want to, but I don't really want to. I'm not going to see it, but I don't need to focus on it. And yeah, so I love the answer, Alexander. Of course, I mean we see eye to eye, and we got a lot of the same beliefs in what we're trying to ultimately do.
Yes.
And Joe, what about you as far as this question goes? What legacy do you hope to leave behind in the world of film, and how do you want to be remembered by future generations?
Well, I think hopefully it's too early in my life to even worry about legacies and future generations. I mean, everything that Alexander just said, everything that you just is true. There's too much negativity out there, and I hope to instill positivity in everything that we do. I mean, even with our deep, dark, and disturbing stuff, like our horror movie that we did a couple of years ago. I mean, stuff like that. I hope that people also have fun with it, and that's what I want to instill right now, and maybe this will carry on throughout the years, is I hope that when people watch this movie, they have fun. And as I said at the beginning of our time here together, it is outrageous and it is fun. And you are going to have a wild time with this movie. And I hope that that is at least the immediate legacy. As far as legacy down the road, I think it's too early to tell. Hopefully people will say, he was a decent guy. I liked having a martini with him, and he was fun hanging out on a set. Maybe that'll be it.
For sure.
Humble.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for joining, guys. And of course, everybody watching, make sure to check out the film Taken From Rio Bravo on Zumo. You can stream it. And they are pushing it quite hard, like you mentioned, Alexander, because even when I'm watching it, they have commercial breaks and they play ads. and they'll even play the ad for the film that I'm actually watching. You know, so I know if they're putting that ad just out there, and they're putting it out on all the content that is streaming on Zumo. So it's a good push. And like you said, in November, I suppose a few months from now, you're going to have like a physical release, which will be really cool, because I know a lot of people still like their physical media. Like, even if they don't necessarily put it in their DVD or Blu-ray player, they like to have the copy, almost like a book on a bookshelf type thing. The people still like there it goes right there. Nice.
Shameless plug. Yeah, people do like DVDs and Blu-rays, and I still collect them. I love them. It's my preferred methodology if I'm not in a cinema to watch a movie. But these streaming platforms are amazing now. They look amazing. This Zumo Play, it looks amazing. So, yeah, we're very fortunate to have Alexander on top of all this and getting us these really good outlets. And may I just add one more shameless plug?
Sure.
I have a book coming out in about a month or a little bit more. And it's my first book of fiction. It's a novelization of my first Western screenplay with about 4 or 5, I forget how many now, added tales, and it's all Westerns. It's called A Prayer for the Damned and Other Tales of the West. And that'll be out, released by Henry Grape Publishing within the next month or two. So please look out for that.
Yeah, and anybody, I'm sure, could probably buy it on Amazon, right?
Yes, it'll be available on Amazon as well. Mm-hmm.
Okay, sounds good. I'll have to check that out.
Thank you.
Any closing comments, Brian?
No, I enjoyed you guys. You're very, there's always something about people who are humble. They have a humble energy, and I think that's great. And I look forward to seeing more of your work, and you reviving the Arnold kind of energy. I like that. We need that again. I love it. That's what I felt in that movie. And obviously you've mentored off of him a little bit there. You can see that. So I like that. That's going to be exciting to see.
Thank you.
Joe, thank you for what you're doing, man. I love it.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you very much. And thank you, David. Thank you for supporting our movies, and good luck to you both with everything. Yes. David will cheer for you and your fight. I mean, I have no doubts that you will beat the guy. With all due respect to him, I have no doubts you'll do. But best of luck to you. Best of luck to you, Brian.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your words. I mean, you can be sure we'll make more. We'll make more. To make you happy. We will. Thank you very much for supporting us, guys. For joining me. It's very, it's important. Thank you.
Thanks, Alexander. Thanks, Joe, and thanks, Brian, and thanks everybody for watching. We will see you guys next week on another live.
Thanks for everything, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
All right.